Is this the new diamond in the crypto sky and a top investment? Or is it just the same thing we always see? Or are we witnessing something completely new here? This video is all about Qubitcoin. Welcome to Crypto Yule. Once again, we're seeing something really special, a cryptocurrency that's on the rise and everyone is saying this is it, or this is the next big thing. Qubitcoin, the new diamond in the crypto sky. That's what many people are saying. And here we really do have something new because there's something special going on here. First of all, the name Bitcoin. That's already part of it, and before that there's a Q, so a Q and a U, quantum Bitcoin. That's how this project is initially described. The cryptocurrency for it is called QTC, not BTC, but QTC. And we have to be honest, the whole thing really does smell a lot like Bitcoin. And yes, let's say it directly, and this is very important. It's a Bitcoin fork. They're not hiding that fact either. They make it public and it's powered by quantum proof of work. So they take Bitcoin's proof of work, create a fork from it, and rewrite it for quantum technology. Now, right at the beginning, let's pause for a moment. Bitcoiners are so afraid, or rather, there's this concern among Bitcoiners, those who are deeply involved and technologically savvy. They themselves say, no, people in the Bitcoin community don't need to worry about quantum computers, and certainly not when it comes to mining. But here, the approach is to use quantum technology to improve mining and also to build a blockchain. Of course, the whole thing is a bit contradictory again, but it's all open source and you can tinker with and modify this code a bit. And they've made the whole thing completely public with the Bitcoin fork. They've written here that they're starting the whole thing with Bitcoin, but, and we have to be honest about this, they are planning some changes. And we'll find those here. Here's another nice article. It's basically the same thing, just written a bit more nicely. They plan to improve or worsen, depending on how you look at it, the complexity so that the advantages of quantum processors can be better utilized. Verifiability will also change, as will scalability. So if you're someone who says, Bitcoin? Yeah, I'm actually a huge Bitcoiner, and now I have to find something new, then I have a fork here, but it's already starting to do completely different things, namely addressing what Bitcoiners actually criticize, that quantum computers will eventually come. I mean the community, not the people who are more deeply involved. And then comes a project that focuses exactly on that. It's called Super Quantum, that's what they call themselves, or rather, that's the project behind it, and Qubitcoin is the cryptocurrency associated with it. They have two projects, Qubitcoin and SuperSim. Those are the things they plan to do with the company Super Quantum. Yes, and Super Quantum, those are the founders behind it. I found one of them on LinkedIn, but not the others. Well, actually pronouncing this name is a bit tricky. You all can probably do it better than I can. So that's one of the co-founders, and he's working on this Super Quantum. And this is what the whole thing looks like. There aren't many people behind it, unfortunately. It's just the two of them, but according to their list, there are a few more. We can see that here, they wrote it themselves. Here, the people behind it. All of this has been made public here, and they're trying to generate attention with their articles, but to be honest, they wrote it themselves. Very important. They've published it themselves here on regular platforms like GitHub. It's exactly the same, and also on Medium. So, as always, I'll provide you with all the information about it. As usual, you'll find the links to it in the video description. But what exactly is so special about all of this? Well, they're trying to build a blockchain using quantum technology, a quantum proof of work. And of course, they want to improve and expand the whole thing. To do this, they'll be relying on the NVIDIA Quantum or CU Quantum, so CU Quantum SDK. That's one of the possibilities. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can use quantum technology, or rather this SDK, this toolkit for quantum technology. And then you can also participate in the mining process. That's their plan. Now, of course, the question is, can every graphics card use quantum technology? Theoretically, yes. With the software, practically only the newer hardware, of course, because NVIDIA has already introduced quantum technology, or at least made some posts about it. So, what happened with the price here? Now I'll show you the entire chart. At first, I only looked at the upward movement. I actually found out about this project pretty early on, back when they weren't even listed yet. Where are they listed? So, for anyone thinking, oh, quantum technology, a price that's going up, and now we're also looking at the community and so on. Right now, it's only available on SafeTrade. They're currently raising some money for more listings. Personally, I think they'll probably get listed on this exchange first. So if you're looking for an exchange, check it out in our exchange comparison. You'll find the link there, of course. We have our current exchange comparison here, featuring 10 exchanges we've compared, listing all the pros and cons, plus of course the fees, which are the most important thing. And I think this will be one of the exchanges where they'll get listed first, because Maxi is already in talks there. Now, of course, I've given away a bit too much again, but that's the information for you. So if you want to sign up with Maxi, there's still a 10% cashback available on our homepage, or you can find the links in our link tree, of course. Now let's move on to the topic of community. The community is still relatively small, but even so, we've already seen this price jump here. First of all, the whole thing was a fair launch. So they forked Bitcoin, they are a fork of Bitcoin, a branch of the Bitcoin proof of work network, and then set their own rules. So starting tomorrow, there will be a fork. Anyone who wants to join in can participate with their miner, and we can mine a bit of QTC. The whole thing is called Qubitcoin, the cryptocurrency is called QTC, and these are the rules. 50 QTC per block every 10 minutes for now, but we'll change that in the future. So if you're interested, join in. That's how it all started in November 2024. In August 2024, the whole thing was introduced. And of course, there were already the first miners, and then, of course, it first had to reach the point where they started getting attention. That means if you found out about this project early, you could already buy from miners. So there are already quite a lot of people who hold this cryptocurrency. You can also track all of this, who has already made transactions or how much is being held through their Explorer. You can follow how many transactions there are here. Here, for example, the last block had 2 transactions. Before that, there were 5, and before that, 11. So you can see everything is still very new, everything is still very small, but we also have to be honest about all of this. We can also refresh the whole thing. I don't think it updates automatically. No, it stays like that. We have to be honest, it's just a blockchain for now. We don't have any smart contracts, we don't have any projects being built yet. For now, we just have a blockchain with a vision, a cryptocurrency, and it's not listed anywhere major yet. So for now, we have to start small. We're really just at the very beginning here. And here too, the big topic for miners is of course those who might say, look, I want to mine something and maybe even profitably. So maybe I'll just pick a new blockchain and do a bit of mining there. That's what we're seeing here. Of course, they can also earn a bit from that. Here are the pools, for example. This is a solo miner with an efficiency, or rather a success rate of 56%. Here, it's at 344%. So we can see that here, every day, a solo miner finds one. Here in the pool, one is found every 4 minutes in a block. And here we can see all the network stats. So if you're interested, you'll find the links to this in the video description, of course. Yes, and then of course it happened that people may have already bought miners there. And of course these people were interested. Maybe they said, look, I'm going to buy 3 or 4 tranches XY cryptocurrency, I don't know. So I don't know how much was bought there. You can actually track all of this if you scroll back far enough in the Explorer. And then you say, look, now I have enough. Now I'll slowly start posting about this project. And of course, at some point, a community starts to form. The X account is relatively new. Let's take a look at that as well. This is the official Telegram group. It's still relatively small. As we can see here, 1,948. The official X account has only been around since July 25, so it's really just a few days old and is currently being updated with 2,044 followers. So at first glance, you might think, oh, this is still a very young cryptocurrency, a very young crypto project. I can still get in now. Now let's move on to my outlook. In any case, we can see here that something is currently being built up. And as we know, a new cryptocurrency gets pushed through all the groups, gets hyped by insiders, then the first influencers jump on board, and so on, and that's how something like this comes about. SafeTrade was the first platform that made it possible to trade all of this here. The whole thing started at around 50 cents, maybe more like 30, somewhere in that range. And then it shot up thanks to many Telegram groups. You probably saw it in our Telegram group as well. That's why I'm making a video about it here too. If something gets posted multiple times in our Telegram group, I naturally feel obliged to make a video about it as well. Yes, and that's how the whole thing was pushed up. If you just type QTC into X, you'll quickly see the usual posts, like the ones you see here. And if you missed out on KS and also Tau, then Qubitcoin is, of course, your big opportunity. You have to be honest, of course. This is probably someone who already holds a lot of QTC and is now promoting it here. It goes on, of course, then come the price predictions. Watch out, now it's at $8. It's going to correct a bit more to around $3.30. If you buy there, great, because then it's going to shoot up to $15. And here's another analysis. This one is actually a bit higher here. It's at, well, let's say here, maybe around $5 or so. So you'll see all these typical posts if you just search for it. Here, if you missed Casper, then here's the new work. Here, what's this? That's supposed to be a big deal. So altcoin gems, there was a hashtag. Yeah, it's possible that we're experiencing a short-term hype here. We have to be honest about that. Short-term hype is being pushed by the community. When new listings come out, there will probably be more advertising as well. Right now, they're also raising money. You can see that here. They're currently raising $6,000 so they can be properly listed on CoinMarket and CoinGecko. And then, of course, it's great for $6,000 if you're properly listed and can advertise there. What's interesting here is that they're not mainly collecting in their own currency, but also in ETH or through companies. I assume that also means through second layers, then through Solana and in Bitcoin. And that's definitely interesting because I'd say, now think about other cryptocurrencies that started out like this. For example, now maybe the big question comes up. Casper, since it's being compared here again on X, well, we have to be honest and say, first of all, it's not a Bitcoin fork. So Casper is its own blockchain. That's very important to mention. With its own new protocol, not quantum computer, but a completely new protocol, a new algorithm, a blockchain created entirely from scratch. But here with Qubitcoin, we're talking about a Bitcoin fork. That means they didn't bother to build their own network, but simply made a fork and said to the Bitcoiners, hey, we're making a fork here. Are you interested? And they already got a few people on board that way. So basically, it's an easier start. But they're also collecting money on other blockchains in USDT with companies and Solana, but they're also collecting Bitcoin and at the very bottom, our beloved QTC. That's how they wrote it. Here's proof again before anyone says I'm talking nonsense. And because they're a Bitcoin fork, the addresses here also start with BC. So is it really just a Bitcoin fork or is it something of their own after all? At first glance, it seems interesting because quantum computer technology is something the world has been talking about for a while, and eventually they'll come, take over humanity, and be implanted into robots. And then they'll just create their own brains and make their own beings. At least that's the assumption. Whether it will all actually happen is, of course, still a long way off. In any case, when quantum computers do arrive, they will be very, very expensive. Probably only purchased by research institutions and subsidized by governments. You just have to be honest about that. So, quantum technology on a small scale will be quite difficult. On a large scale, it will probably exist, or maybe it already does. But to connect that with a blockchain, to fork it from Bitcoin, and many in the Bitcoin community are afraid of quantum computers, that someday they might be able to read out their wallet addresses or their 24 words. Of course, that's a difficult issue, and everyone has to decide for themselves. I think short-term hype is absolutely realistic. We can see it in the X posts. We can see that more listings are still to come. We can see that there will still be exchange promotions or some kind of campaigns, like buy QTC and get 20% off, but Qubitcoin will be paying for that in the background. Because yes, we have a new network here, but is it really decentralized if there are founders involved again? So they make a Bitcoin fork from the most decentralized blockchain there is, and in the end, it's actually not really decentralized because there are founders who direct and control everything, and here too, they collect money from the community, but then also across different blockchains and not just their own. You simply have to decide for yourself if this is something for you. Do you want to ride the short-term hype, or would you rather invest in a project for the long term and say something really big will develop here over time? Or is this just about starting a short-lived hype? Because I believe, and this is my personal opinion from here on, I believe it will be a short-term hype. We're in 2025. Hey, it's a great year. My theory is and remains the same. 2017, 2021, 2025. The hype around cryptocurrencies will return because, in my opinion, the 4-year cycle is still alive. But what happens after 2025? What happens if Qubitcoin or QTC maybe reaches a price of $15? What happens then? Does the whole thing die down because everyone leaves cryptocurrencies again anyway? Or will they then start with smart contracts with opportunities to build on this blockchain? Or will they just try to finance their quantum technology since they have another project in the background with SuperSyn? And to be honest, we have to be careful with such new projects where there are founders who, of course, also pursue goals that might not be public. That's why this project has been around for a long time. There were many people who meant well, probably including the founders themselves, and now want to sell these QTC, and they will. So be careful. I think a short-term hype is absolutely realistic. In the long run, I think it remains a Bitcoin fork. And how many Bitcoin forks do you know that have been successful and are still making big headlines today? Just think about it. With that in mind, I want to say thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video.